So the success of these engineered approaches has really become massively popular. A lot of people are putting these into their crop plants. The amount of money saved certainly stands to save some money on pesticides, herbicides, other factors of farming, and save a lot of time and money on these. So they've become very popular. And you can just see here, these are some main crops that are genetically modified or have genetically modified versions. And this is a little bit dated at this point, 2013, but big proportions of soy, maize or corn, and these other crops are genetically modified. There aren't actually, as of this recording in 2022, there aren't so many approved genetically modified organisms out there, but that will probably continue to increase the number that are available out in the market, number of species that are genetically modified. Kind of a start point here, 1996, 1998, some of these early genetic modifications, and this is also showing numbers of hectares, so amount of cropland that's involved with these herbicide tolerant. So this would be like the Roundup Ready modification, insect resistance, like the BT toxin as we saw, and then a combination of the two, just increasing over time. So we've got positive effects and negative effects, and this is a topic that you can definitely debate with people about which side you're on. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle of thinking these are the best thing ever, or thinking that they're the worst thing ever. There's definitely people on both sides. We'll just go over some of the positives and negatives. So positive, as I've mentioned, a lot of time saved. That's probably the biggest one, along with increased crop yield. So allowing these crops to perform without being stressed by weeds, without being stressed by herbivores, allows you to get more crop for your same amount of effort. You can grow crops more densely, so that Roundup Ready that I talked about, that technology allows you, one of the techniques for getting rid of weeds is to space your crops and have a zone where you can do some weeding in from the side. If you don't have to worry about weeds because you're chemically destroying them all, then you can grow your target crop right next to each other, and that increases the yield per amount of space you're growing them on. Just general efficiency. So herbicide spraying is a whole other activity. Pesticide spraying is a whole other activity. So being able to kind of cut down on the amount of effort and the amount of chemicals you're putting in on these angles allows you to save some money. The negatives of genetic modification, this is one of the bigger ones that people have raised. This isn't even, I don't know if we're really talking about the health of the plants that we're modifying. This one is just kind of looking at the almost predictable, I'd say probably predictable consequence of developing some of these resistances. So if you look at the ability in that Roundup Ready example for spraying glyphosates and killing off all your weeds, that sets up a landscape where you are selecting for weeds that survive the spraying. And so if that, one of the consequences of genetic modification is that people have really relied on that glyphosate herbicide. And so that's out there in great amounts. And every time, if there's any amount of plant weed that survives that, then the weed goes on to reproduce and produces offspring that have this ability to resist the herbicide. So we're setting up a landscape where everything that's not resistant is killed, and anything that is resistant has a great advantage over other weeds and other individuals of its species. So starting in, again, that same kind of time period, 1990s, of when these genetic modifications were coming through, these are weed species that have become glyphosate resistant over time. So every move upwards on the y-axis is a new species, and then moving on the x-axis is through time. So pretty consistent number of species that are becoming resistant every year as we go along. So this is analogous to what you might have heard about in humans with antibiotic resistant bacteria. We put a chemical out there that's killing organisms we don't like, then we're also selecting for organisms that don't get killed. And we end up with getting a lot of those. So the future is that maybe this glyphosate technology is not going to be as effective if you've got fields full of these resistant weeds. But one of the videos I'll share with you suggests that the economy of this is going to keep moving. So we'll keep trying to innovate new ways around this. So genetic modification, it's had a bit of history where when these kind of things come out on the scene, first, people are resistant, and certainly some people are still resistant. I don't know if I'm going to tell you which side I'm on this. I don't know if I've fully decided. That's one that's definitely got some room for interpretation. So one concern with genetic modification is by putting the DNA of one organism into another, we're potentially starting up something that we don't know how it's going to play out. So you put a toxin from a bacterium into a plant. Initially, that looks like, okay, that's a toxin that's only going to act against insects, but it's also maybe the starting point for a new toxin, a variant of that molecule or process that's going to then be toxic to people, or unforeseen consequences. We have, as a species, I'd say we have a long history of taking easy fixes that turn out to be problems later. So right now we're facing a global climate crisis as a result of following the convenience of burning fossil fuels. It was really convenient and saved a whole bunch of effort. And now it's concerned that it's causing trouble for the environment. We have a history of using pesticides that end up causing harm to unforeseen parts of the environment or to people. So I think it's a good idea to be a little bit guarded about these technologies. But that being said, this is a relatively new development where scientists are coming out a little bit more in favor of genetic modification. And one of the angles that they play is the idea that like this ability to put crops in the hands of people who don't currently have them. So spreading agriculture and health benefits to people in the world who currently are maybe experiencing trouble growing crops or famine or something like that. So there's a potential upshot if we can use our technology to improve the lives of people. For some people, that outweighs the concerns about what could be the negative effects of this. So feel free to debate this on your own. I think it's a great topic for debate. Moving forward,